Hello, hello, hello. I think we're live. I'm so excited to be here and see you all coming in. Lots of you coming in right now. And go ahead and type into the chat who you are, where you're from, and how you want to be supported. Like, what is it that prompted you to sign up for this? I know it's a busy day. I know that it's the middle of the week and it's the middle of the day, so it's not the most convenient time for some of you in the North American time zones, and it's probably very convenient for those of you in like the European time zones. But anyway, I just want you to know how excited I am to have you here. This is intended to go about 90 minutes. And I, make time in your schedule. We said that in the email. It said, it's about 90 minutes long. So just so you know. So if you have to leave early or you come in late, we'll make sure that we give you some information about how you can follow up. So we have Steve from St. Augustine. We have Sharon. Oops, it just went by. Susan from Phoenix. Oh, Sharon, I need a chronic. Okay. Colorado. Oh God, you're just coming in so fast. It's hard to keep up with you all. But thank you for being here. And from my perspective, from my team's perspective, can you just like the kinds of things, just the general ideas of the kinds of things that people want to make sure they cover, just put it in that little doc that you have for me, because it goes by so fast on my screen, I can't see it. Lots of you here today. I'm very, very excited to have you here. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get started, because I do want to make sure that I respect your time and that we finish on time. I tend to be known for over-delivering and giving a lot of great information, and sometimes it does go over. So I'm going to respect your time and try to keep it short, and then I'll tell you how you can learn more. There's so much I want to share, and there's not enough time to do it in. So I'm going to go ahead and start our recording. So we have a backup recording. There you go. So welcome everybody to the 3 dangerous food mistakes that most people make that keep them struggling with weight, energy, and overall ability to feel good. Does that sound like you? Type into the chat and say, yeah, you've been struggling with weight or energy or just wanting to feel better again. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to please get rid of distractions, because I promise to make this time together well worth your time and energy. I'm Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo, and we're going to start in just a moment, but make sure that you've turned your cell phone on to vibrate so you don't get interrupted. Take out something that you can take notes on, whether it's a pen and a paper the old-fashioned way, or whether it's a tablet or a file on your laptop. But you will want to take notes, and I highly recommend that you do, because that's a method of active learning that's going to help it go really well for you. So yeah, wow, there's so many of you coming in. I'm just delighted to be here with you. So without further ado, I am going to start the presentation. So I know that you are here for a reason. You wouldn't have made time out of your busy schedule in the middle of the day, middle of the week, if health wasn't a priority to you. And I really honor that, because there's a lot of folks in the world who are just not making health a priority. And as a result, they're just not feeling good. And you're making a priority and you're ready to go. So I want to just find out a little bit about you. Maybe you're so tired that you just don't have the energy for doing the fun things that you like to do, because you can barely make it through the day, getting through the things you have to do. Maybe you're frustrated because you've been trying diet after diet and exercise program after exercise program, and you just aren't able to fit into your favorite jeans because the belly keeps getting bigger and bigger. And maybe you've carried that extra weight for a while, or maybe it's just suddenly started. Either way, it's frustrating, isn't it? Another thing is you might have found yourself feeling really like getting overwhelmed at just the little things. It's one thing to get overwhelmed by big things, but when we start to get overwhelmed by little things, like, I don't know, the mouse won't work on the computer or something like that. And the brain fog. Who's a bit brain foggy? Type in the chat if you find yourself a little bit brain foggy. Years ago, nobody knew what I meant. When I was having my own health issues, when I said brain fog, it's like, what's brain fog? Now everybody understands that term. Like, where are my keys? What's my name? Who was I talking to? What was my train of thought? And it's frustrating. So, and maybe you've been trying to feel better and you've spent a lot of money on supplements and doctor visits and alternative treatments, and it's things are just not working, and you're getting more and more confused the more summits and online teleseminars just like this that you attend. You're confused even more and more. And I'm going to share with you how to end that confusion today. I'm not going to tell you I have the perfect solution and all you have to do is follow my perfect diet plan. I'm going to teach you how you can figure out for yourself what the best opportunity and options are. So if you'd like to live in the right size body, look good, feel great, and have so much energy that you feel like you just want to jump out of bed in the morning, and you want this to continue even as you get older and older, I think that you're in the right place here. There's a lot of work talking about today, keto and paleo and plant-based and low oxalate diets and low lectin diets and gluten-free, and a lot of foods are being demonized. Wouldn't you love to no longer feel confused about what eating plan's best for you, what supplements you need, how much to exercise, what kind of exercise? If you said yes to any of these, then I want to assure you that you are in the right place. And what we're going to cover today is going to help you to see past the confusion, to help you to get on the path to a body you love. So by the end of our time together, what I want to cover is some of the hazards that are associated with these popular diets, keto, paleo, plant-based diets, an at-home way that you can test yourself so you can learn how to personalize your diet and figure out what the best diet is for you. Some lab tests that you need to know about because most doctors are not going to tell you about them, and they can give you clues as to how you should be eating and how you should be living and what's going on in your body and why you're having the symptoms you're having. I want to also talk about the top strategies that you need to include along with a personalized diet plan. And that is super important. It's not just about the diet. I'm going to give you a few immediate relief techniques, things that you can do and start to feel a little bit better, shift things around, and then what's in it is a long-term plan. I wish I had time to tell you everything that's in my head and everything that I could about this. It would take me probably a couple of weeks of education with you. Well, yeah, not nonstop, but it would take me a lot longer to teach you and guide you and help you. But I'm going to give you as much as I can in this session, and I'm going to help you to see where you could go from here. But before we jump right in, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about me and my health journey, so you have a context for who I am, what I've been through, and why you might consider listening to me. And what I'm going to ask you is to type into the chat here, is this your first time on a webinar with me? And if not, is this your first time on this particular training? Because this is like the 5th time we're doing it. We've tried to accommodate everybody's schedules, and we've been doing it for the last week and a half. I will not go into so much detail because I could go on and on for days about what I've been through and how I've learned what I have. But I just want to give you the highlights so that you know that I'm just not coming off the top of my head, that I really know what I'm talking about. I'm 63 years old. I'm full of energy. I'm running a successful healthcare business. I'm running online health programs. I'm teaching other practitioners, MDs, nurses, health coaches, psychologists, other people who are interested in looking at root cause healthcare. And I lead online in-person 3-day live events, and I lead tons of these webinars online. And I feel great. I'm physically active. My brain is online. I like to run and swim and hike and jump and play. But I wasn't always this way, because back in my 20s, I was suffering. I was so tired I could barely get out of the bed. I used to do the body part drag. I just throw the legs off and then try to get the middle of my body up and finally get my head up off the pillow. And it was grueling to try to get out of bed in the morning. And of course, in order to get me going and keep me going, I had to drink caffeine and sugar all day long just to stay awake. I was so brain fogged, I couldn't focus at work. And sometimes I even struggled to remember people's names. And this was frustrating to me because I was valedictorian in high school. I was in the top 5% of my class in graduating from college, and from a prestigious college, NYU in New York. I was on, and then it hit. and I wasn't so on. My cravings were so out of control, and my weight was like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. I'd let go of 5 pounds and then gain back 10 and then start all over again. Wasn't pretty. My digestion was a mess. It got to the point where every time I ate, I doubled over in pain. And I didn't know what to do about this. My sinuses were constantly running. I was congested, blowing my nose all the time, dripping into my throat, coughing. And I went from practitioner to practitioner, looking for the answers. I went to specialists of all kinds, the ENTs and the gastroenterologists. I was offered cortisone shots in my nose. I actually got cortisone shots in my nose. That wasn't comfortable. They did cryosurgery on my sinuses. They froze out my sinuses because they thought that would help it to not be stuffed up all the time. I took antibiotics. I took Valium. I took ulcer medication. And I was in my mid-20s, and I thought, wow, I should be at my peak health here. And I was falling apart, and none of the doctors could help me. I was desperate to find a solution. And the last straw was when the test for the ulcer came back negative, and I was told that I didn't have an ulcer. And when I asked why, they said, well, we don't know why, but just keep taking the ulcer medication. Something in my head just started to question the validity of this method of healthcare. And I asked this question that would change my life forever, and it was, could it be my diet? The doctor answered, of course not. Diet has nothing to do with health. I decided to be my rebel self and find out and prove him wrong. And my mom always called me a rebel. She said, she said no, I was going to figure out a way to show her that it actually should be yes. So I set out in that way. And I was a very inquisitive person, being in computer science and math, and solving problems was my thing. So I did a lot of trial and error. I did a lot of reading and research. And back in the day, that was in the 1980s, it was research, guess where? The library. And I went to the bookstores, and the little tiny health section was, maybe one shelf big, not like it is now. I found some doctors who knew how to do functional testing. I learned about that. I learned about elimination diets. And eventually I found out about cleansing and fasting and a lot of things that are now becoming popular. But back then I was thought of as kind of crazy. And I figured out what I could eat, what I should take, what my lifestyle should be like so that I could get my energy back. And I did. All of my health challenges reversed. After that, I was feeling so good that I decided I was going to quit my job in the computer industry. My very lucrative, by the way, job where I was making a lot of money back in the day. And I decided I didn't want to keep doing that. I wanted to help other people so that they didn't have to deal with the kinds of frustration and the length of time and all the reading and research that it took me. So I became an integrative doctor so I could help everybody else and make it easier and quicker than it was for me. I got my degrees in chiropractic, clinical nutrition, acupuncture, herbal medicine, and a stress transformation system. A lot of you have heard me talk about heart math. Right now, my toolbox is like overflowing with strategies to help others regain their health. And it takes them a lot less time and effort than it took me. And I love my toolbox, and I love sharing my toolbox. And now at 63, I feel better than I did in my 20s. I actually thought, well, what will my health be like in my 50s when I was back in my 20s and falling apart? And I said, well, what would it be like? Well, I did my first marathon at 50, and I've done multiple half marathons and triathlons since. So I'm active, I'm healthy, and it was because I changed my direction. I didn't keep heading in the direction that the pizza and the ice cream and all were taking me. I changed my direction, and I got to a different outcome. I got to change the course of my life. And whether you're in your 20s like I was, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or even older, I've worked with people in their 70s and 80s and helped them to make changes and turn around the course of their life. I decided that when I was going to take that new direction, I wasn't going to look back. And that was really amazing. And I couldn't be happier. People ask me, well, don't you miss your pizza and ice cream? I said, no, because I know how to make variations on pizza and ice cream that are good and nutritious for me and loaded with health. So that's what I want to share with you. So there are some dangerous food mistakes that many, if not most people make, and it keeps them struggling with the weight, energy, and the ability to feel good. And I want to help you to identify these things so you can change things around. So that's enough about me. Let's go on to you. I'm going to share with you as much as I can. And then we're going to share with you, like, what can you do moving forward to put this into practice? So we're going to start with the mistakes going backwards from 3 to 1, kind of like they do on the late night TV shows. So the third dangerous food mistake that most people make that keeps them struggling with weight, energy, and overall ability to feel good is it's related to fats. It's related to the wrong type of fat and the wrong amount of fat. Some people eat too much fat for their body. Some people eat too little fat for their body. And most people eat the wrong kinds of fats. So we're going to go through what some of that is. So you'll see some fats in this picture. You may look at this picture and go, wow, that's all the healthy fats. Well, yes, and right. If you have a problem with digesting flax seeds or chia seeds, it's not going to be healthy for you. But these are overall the healthy fats with the exception of oil. I'm not a big fan of oil because it's been extracted from the rest of the food, and the fiber and the protein and the carbohydrate components have been stripped away, and it's just fat. So I want you to know that while a little bit of olive oil on a salad, here and there, or a little bit of oil here and there is one thing, but actually using and considering oil as a health food is not a good idea, right? Our focus should be on whole foods, primarily plant-based fats, because those tend to have the most healing benefits for us. So the amount of fat matters too. So there are keto advocates who are saying 80% of the diet should be fat. The government guidelines say 30% or less. Some low-fat plant advocates say under 10%. So who's right about the amount? Well, it depends. So keto diets are in the news these days. And this is a diet that developed therapeutically for helping kids with seizures. And it's become now the latest craze in weight loss. And it is super effective for weight loss. It's based on the idea of teaching the body how to burn fat as fuel. And it's a particular kind of fat derivative called ketones, ketone bodies, instead of glucose. And what it does is it decreases our need for a hormone called insulin. And we'll talk more about that in just a bit. So the ketones, the ketogenic diet, there's a lot of good things about keto. For example, helps to control blood sugar and can improve memory and mental clarity and reduce seizures and help with chronic irritable bowel and gut inflammation even, helps to fuel the brain, improves mitochondrial function, and mitochondria are those little powerhouses in every cell that make energy for you. It decreases insulin. And let me mention insulin here, especially if you are struggling with weight. Insulin is the hormone that takes the sugar out of the blood and puts it in the cells. And guess what? It's what's called an anabolic hormone. It's an anabolic hormone because it stores, it doesn't break down. And what it does is it puts the brakes on fat burning. You hear that? It puts the brakes on fat burning. So if you're running around with an extra 10, 20, 30, 50 pounds or so around your belly, around your thighs, around your hips, and you're eating every 2 or 3 hours, like a lot of health advocates are telling you to do, you have insulin in your system all day long. And guess what that means? You're not going to burn fat. So we'll talk more about that and how to manage insulin in a bit. But a ketogenic diet, the way it's typically taught, does help to decrease insulin because we're not eating a lot of carbs, so we don't need so much. And it actually produces more ATP, which is the energy currency that the mitochondria produce, actually more per unit than glucose. So, you get 40 units of ATP out of a ketone body and versus 36 out of glucose. But that we'll find is outweighed by some of the cons, right? So what are some of the cons? Well, the way it's typically taught, 80% fat, 5% carbohydrate and 10%, 15%, somewhere in that range of protein. Well, that's the way it's typically taught. The way it's actually done is people think, oh, I need to eat a high-fat diet, so I need to eat a lot of meat. And a lot of people who are trying to do keto are doing a lot of meat, which is shooting up the protein, which is taking them out of ketosis. If you have compromised kidney function, all the acidic waste that's produced on a ketogenic diet from all the animal protein and animal fat, damaging. If you have extreme adrenal fatigue, ketogenic diet in some cases can make it worse. If you have poor thyroid function, a ketogenic diet can make it worse. It's not saying that a ketogenic diet can cause adrenal fatigue or can cause poor thyroid function, but it can make it worse. And if you have poor electrolyte balance, it'll pull them out of the tissues. If you have histamine intolerance or oxalate sensitivity or glutamate sensitivity, you may think twice before trying a ketogenic diet. Now, on the other hand, people say to me, well, why do you think a ketogenic diet's bad? I don't actually, if it's done right. I do a ketogenic diet, and I do a more plant-based ketogenic diet that's loaded with vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, and good whole food plant-based fats. I don't use oil. I mean, I do occasionally use a little bit of oil, but in general, I don't use oil. So these are some of the cautions. Then there's also the other thing that's popular these days is paleo. So what's wrong with paleo, right? There's some really great things about paleo. They say, don't eat sugar, don't eat dairy, don't eat gluten. But the downside is they eat a lot of eggs and a lot of protein. People are misinterpreting. They're saying, well, the ketogenic, the Paleolithic people, this is Paleolithic people ate a lot of meat. They just went and killed their meat and they ate it. Well, yeah, they did. And then when they ran out, they were doing berries and roots and greens. So the whole way that it's done now is done usually with too much meat, not enough vegetables. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's the thing, like, okay, so this is the way our ancestors ate. And there's a lot of good things about the way our ancestors ate. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they didn't have McDonald's to go through. They didn't have the processed foods in the boxes. But they also just ate what they could because they didn't have those conveniences. So, and we've evolved since then. So the theory about that we should eat like our paleo ancestors did, okay, is it true? I don't know. But even if it is true, let's eat the way they really ate, which is just meat on occasion, not all the time. So the other problem with paleo, the other hazard with paleo is people are going, okay, I'm going to follow these paleo rules, but I'm going to make my modern foods like pancakes and muffins in a paleo-friendly way. Well, I don't know about you, but I believe that back in the day of Paleolithic times, they didn't make coconut pancakes or almond flour muffins, right? And most of the recipes that they use for these convenience foods, these modern foods, use tons of eggs, and eggs have their own issues with them. And especially in this modern age of immunizations where everybody's been immunized with a substrate that actually contains egg albumin. So a lot of people are actually allergic to them. So most of the meals are missing the proportion of vegetables that they really need. What about plant-based diets? Those are healthy, right? Well, it depends. A plant-based diet can be very skewed on the wrong kinds of fats, very skewed on our omega-6 versus 3. We'll talk about that in a minute. Plus, just because something's plant-based or vegan, it doesn't mean it's healthy. Fritos are vegan, by the way. Potato chips are vegan, by the way. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are vegan. Does that mean you're healthy? So with the plant-based diet, we have to avoid the cautions of the junk food plant-based diet, of too much oil in the plant-based diet, too much almond milk, which is a high omega-3. So it's a myth that fat is bad. And this is what I want to get across. I'm not advocating a low-fat diet. I'm also not advocating a high-fat diet. I'm also not advocating a moderate fat diet. I am advocating fat content in the diet that's right for you. Well, how do you know? Well, if you've had your gallbladder removed, you are probably eating processed fats for a long time. You damaged your liver gallbladder connection, and they took it out because you started to form stones. You had it, bile congealed into little stones, right? So if you don't have a gallbladder and you have a history of gallbladder issues, we're going to have to be more careful about those fats, right? And if you're super, super skinny, and you have a high metabolic rate, well, higher fat diet can be helpful. So we have to figure it out for you. And there are definite ways to do that. I work with people all the time to help them figure it out. I remember working with somebody when I first started in practice, and I was like, oh, I'm going to, change his diet and get him on this whole food plant-based fat diet and a lot of, whole grains and legumes and vegetables and all. And the guy did great and he lost a lot of weight and he was feeling great. So I was like, okay, I got this down. And the next person came in and I tried the same thing and she gained weight and she felt awful. And we figured out for her, she needed more fat in her diet and less carbs, right? She was probably in what I would call her now would be insulin resistant or pre-insulin resistant. And when I put her on a higher fat with lots of vegetables, still, we'll find out, lots of vegetables, and she did phenomenally. She lost the weight, even though she was eating like an avocado or two a day, and she was eating higher fat foods. So we all need fats. They are what form your myelin sheaths around your nerves that help transmission from the brain to your limbs. They are 60% of your brain. They surround your cells and help to let the cells absorb nutrition and release the toxins. So we have to have it. And of course, hormones, sex hormones are based on fats. They come from a molecule of steroid base, right? And sex hormones, stress hormones, and other things, all based on fat. So we have to have the balance. And omega-3 6 balance is one of the balances we need. And I don't have time to go into all the science of this and all the reasons why and all the foods, but suffice it to say, let me give you a great overview. I have these amazing charts that people who are in my programs, you've seen them. The big thing is avoid vegetable oils, even the ones that say cold pressed organic. Those are causing you damage. They're actually oxidized. When you heat oils above a certain temperature, depending on the particular oil, but some as low as 118 degrees, they are creating free radicals and oxidative byproducts that damage your cells. And this isn't good for you. The other thing I would do is avoid heating high fat foods. Yeah, like almonds, roasted almonds, the almond flour coconut muffins on the keto and paleo plans. Those are not really good for you because we're creating oxidative byproducts, right? But if you soak and sprout your nuts and you make a nut milk and you watch for your omega-3 6 balance, you're going to be in good shape. 6s tend to be more inflammatory. 3s tend to be more anti-inflammatory. So what is this about fat? So we want to avoid what's called trans fats. You'll see those in margarine and mayonnaise and a lot of baked goods. Look for something that says trans fat, partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated. That's a trans fat, but also fats that have been heated up past their comfortable temperature. We want to avoid the processed fats. We also want to avoid any oils that are in plastic containers for sure, especially the clear plastic, like in this picture. Butter it's just a fat. It's been extracted from the whole food. So there's a lot of butter craze. Put butter in your coffee, butter and bacon, keto diet. It's not healthy. I mean, it's not that I'm saying you have to get rid of it altogether unless you have an allergy, which you do. But there's that balance of it's not a health food. Just know that it's an indulgence food. And we all get to eat indulgence foods every now and then after we've restored our health. And we can do it to the extent that it doesn't make your health go down again. So there's a lot of good fats. There's a lot of not so good fats. And you're going to find what works for you. Okay, so you want to eat the amount that your body says yes to. You want to eat the type that's good and whole and unprocessed. So that third mistake, in summary, wrong fats, wrong quantity and quality, too much fat or too little fat. We want the Goldilocks principle to be at play, just right. Okay? So I'm going to go into mistake number 2, which is, most people make this mistake, really do, is, you're going to guess it from this picture, they don't eat enough non-starchy vegetables. So let's just define terms. Non-starchy vegetables are those vegetables that are full of water and full of life. And, if you were to juice them, you'd end up with a lot of juice, but very little pulp, right? They're not starchy. Starchy vegetables would be your things like, and this is a broad category, we may not call them actual vegetables if you're a botanist, but the tubers and the roots and things like carrots and beets and potatoes and sweet potatoes and squashes, winter squashes. Those are all the starchy vegetables. Most people eat more starch and not enough of the non-starchies. We should be making our plates abundant in these because they're loaded with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So let's take a look at some of these diets and some of where this this lack of vegetables come in. This is a typical keto breakfast. You know, I typed in typical keto breakfast, got this picture, put this picture in my slide presentation. Bacon and eggs, it's considered like, yeah, it's loaded with fat. It's really great. But what's it missing, guys? It's missing fiber. It's missing the chlorophyll. It's missing the greens, right? So we can't focus on leaving out the vegetables out of meals. It's, you know, it's not good. The other thing about keto is they think all carbs are the same. So they want you to have a low carb diet and only 5% of your diet is carb. You can't count your non-starchy vegetables in that. You can't, because if you do, then the only one you're going to eat is lettuce. And not even romaine, probably. It's probably iceberg. So when the starch is all surrounded with the fiber, the cellulose, as in the non-starchy vegetables, it's not going to raise your blood sugar. I have never seen anybody whose blood sugar goes up on romaine lettuce, kale, arugula, or any of those things. And I've tested thousands of people's blood sugars. So that's a typical keto breakfast. There's a typical plant-based breakfast, or not breakfast, meal, right? Which is much better than just bacon and eggs. And there's a lot of color here. But if you look at the first bowl, it's just a lot of white rice, which is refined and fibers taken out, the B vitamins are taken out, and a lot of colorful vegetables. That's a classic, you know, a grain with a small amount of vegetables. That pizza is considered a plant-based pizza. It doesn't have pepperoni on it. It's got tomatoes that are the red. It's got a little bit of green on it, but it's loaded with like fake soy cheese and the white flour crust. And where are the vegetables? When I make a pizza where I use like a nut or seed-based crust or a cauliflower-based crust, and I dehydrate it at low temperature, and then I add tons of vegetables to it, my pizzas look green. If you've ever gone to my Facebook page, you'll see me post pictures of my pizza. And then there's a really nice looking, lots of color there. It looks like pineapple, and there's some tomatoes or watermelon, hard to tell. There's some sprouts, but again, we're the green leafies, right? We don't see them as much. So I think a lot of people make this mistake. And paleo, I looked up what's a paleo meal. This is a paleo meal. This was actually the best one I could find because a lot of them didn't have so much vegetable. But look, about half or less of the plate is green and full of vegetable, and the other half is pork chops. That's a lot of pork chops in relationship to the vegetables. If you're going to eat pork chops, you know, assuming they're organic, and pork is not one of your healthiest meats, but you want it to be a little tiny amount with a huge amount of vegetables. So everybody's doing it. Plant-based, keto-based, paleo-based, or macrobiotic. There's way more rice and grains. So there's just not enough of the green leafies. This is what your meals should look like. Look how pretty they are. Look how much color there is. Look how bright and alive they are. Yeah, they have a little bit of stuff that has a little bit more caloric density, because the one thing that these non-starchy vegetables are deficient in is it's fat and calories. Right? So we need to put something with it that gives us the calories, and we need to do that based on who we are. How high is our metabolism? How much do you want to lose weight or gain weight? So I love these pictures. The one down at the bottom is my favorite one. That's a cabbage leaf, a cabbage, core, almost like cut in half or cut in a third. And then in between, we've stuffed it with lettuce and tomato and looks like red onions. And there's probably a burger patty in there that usually a nut-based is what I would do to keep it really, really healthy and alive. So this is what people are doing, and they're missing the fiber. They're missing the antioxidants. They're missing the minerals that are loaded in these things and expecting to get them. And, if you just take a mineral supplement, it's not the same. So that the second mistake is not enough non-starchy vegetables. And finally, let's go into mistake number one that most people make, because these are the foods that are addictive, is too many carbs for your unique needs. And why do I say for your unique needs rather than too many carbs? Because it varies from person to person. Someone with a lot of genetic tendencies towards blood sugar imbalance is going to need less carbs than somebody who doesn't have any of that. And when you learn how to calculate it for yourself. It frees you to eat the right amount, not to deprive yourself and not to overindulge. So there's all sorts of carbs, right? There's good carbs and bad carbs. So the bad carbs are considered those that have had their fiber removed, those that have had their good germ removed, those that are processed. So the sugars and the breads and the pastas where they cause a rapid rise in glucose when you take away the fibers. So for some, even a whole grain like quinoa is going to cause a blood sugar spike, but not for most people, right? You have to be super sensitive for that to happen. So picking the carbs that are the best carbs for you. And what about the carbs that are whole and unprocessed? Well, they're not necessarily for everyone. It depends, again, on how your body responds to glucose. And the way that you're going to learn it, I'll talk to you about in a second, is you measure. Okay, so it's dangerous to have high blood sugar. The dangers include damage to kidneys, damage to your peripheral nerves, damage to your eyes, and also affecting the memory centers in the brain and can predispose to Alzheimer's disease, dementia, which is a really awful thing to be in. So depending on the past history that you've had, depending on whether you grew up on Kool-Aid and Wonder Bread like I did, and have genetics, your body's going to be more sensitive. So even fruits can raise your blood sugar a lot if you're a super sensitive. And there are ways to get you to the point where you're less sensitive and you can eat more of that when you go in and do what I call a metabolic reset. So this is really scary. Why do we have this epidemic of insulin resistance and pre-insulin resistance? Well, it's because the average adult eats 22 teaspoons of sugar a day and the average child 32. So imagine what that's doing to the immune system, to the teeth, to the whole system, the insulin system. 32 teaspoons a day. My kids didn't eat any, so somebody's eating my kids' share. And the government's saying no more than 9.5. Say what? That's pretty high. That's crazy. Enough sugar is eaten by the average adult over the course of a year. 150 pounds is the last estimate I saw. Can fill a dumpster. And when you think about it that way, like imagine eating that. Well, we're not just sitting there and eating it. We're eating it in the forms of those yummy and delicious treats, the brownies and the cookies, and even the chips and the corn puffs have sugar in them. Even the tomato sauce has added sugar to it. So we're getting our dose there. Now you may say, well, I don't eat that stuff anymore. I'm smart. I'm educated. Right. Most of you don't. So how do you get your blood sugars out of balance? Well, you could be eating breads and pastas and you say, I'm gluten-free. I just eat the gluten-free stuff. That stuff is just as bad or could be worse because it's a sugar. It's something that causes your sugar to go up really fast. And you may say, I don't eat any of that, but I love my fruit. I just eat lots of fruit. Well, I'm not saying fruit's bad. Fruit is not bad. Fruit is an amazing food loaded with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. But too much fruit and fruit not eaten in the right way, like with a lot of leafy greens, can cause in a lot of folks the sugar to go up. So we look at the sugar load on the body. We look at how is the sugar impacting? Because face it, there's sugar in everything, right? You can take broccoli, break it down, and it's going to break down into glucose. And that's the fuel of the cell. It's just how quickly it does and how much. So I'm a big fan of measuring. A lot of people have gotten a Keto Mojo or some sort of a measuring device. That's become my favorite these days because I like to test both glucose and ketones. And my old favorite got taken off the market. So voila, that's become my new favorite. But there's lots of others. And in my Sweet Spot program, I have a whole chart where I poked myself like 100 times a day for 5 days in a row and rated all the meters in terms of their reliability. And that's a beautiful chart that I give people in Sweet Spot. Those of you in Sweet Spot already know that. The other thing that I've fallen in love with over the last year is this continuous glucose meter. You can stick it on your arm and it just measures all the time. And you just have to hold this little measuring device up, every 4 to 6 to 8 hours to pick up what it's been lifting. And it gives you that graph. You could see, love this thing. I think everybody in the world should at some point be allowed to use one of these for a month. The problem is that they're regulated. They're a regulated substance, kind of like some of the illegal substances. And you can only get it by prescription. Okay. So it just drives me nuts that you can go into a store and you can get antihistamines and aspirin and Tylenol and all kinds of over-the-counter drugs that are known to have dangers that people have died from overdosing or even normal dosing because of their chemistry. I don't think anyone has ever died from putting a continuous glucose meter on the arm, yet you have to have a prescription to get it. It's crazy. It's insane. But I think we should be measuring. And every household needs to have a glucose meter because we want to be able to test to see if some weird symptoms that people are having are related to glucose instability. So more on that later. Okay. So high sugar carbs, high sugar peaks from too many carbs leads to what we call insulin resistance. And if you've watched any of the videos in my training series, you know that I've been talking about that. Well, what happens? Well, insulin is this wonderful hormone. We can't do without it. If you do, you're a type 1 diabetic and you have to shoot it up. You have to have insulin, right? Or we die. But what is this insulin and what's the right amount? That remains to be seen. So when we eat a lot of sugars or starches that convert quickly to sugar or drink alcohol, which gets converted quickly to sugar, we call upon our body to produce a hormone called insulin. And the insulin is basically the escort service for glucose. It takes the sugar and it pops it into the cells. And it maintains the proper intracellular and extracellular concentration of glucose. But when we're eating a lot of these carbs and a lot of these sugary foods and a lot of the starches that convert quickly, like flour-containing foods, we have lots of big spikes in sugar, which means that the body has to produce huge spikes of insulin. And over time, the cells get protective because too much insulin is damaging. And so they turn off their receptivity. They become less sensitive. They become what's called resistant. Insulin resistance. And it's a common problem. It's a medical diagnosis to have insulin resistance. But as we're going to see in a little while, it doesn't start. The problems don't start and the dangers don't start as soon as the doctor says, hey, you're in the range of insulin resistance. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. I just want to set the stage here for this. So what are some of the ways you know if you're having insulin resistance or a stage I call pre-insulin resistance is you start to develop that extra fat around the middle, even if the rest of you is pretty good shape. You start to get that brain fog, that inability to find the word, that grasping for a word, that short-term memory loss. And you feel tired, right? Who has ever wanted to just stop in the middle of their workday, climb on top of or under the desk and go to sleep? That 4 o'clock slump is so common. So some of the other top signs of glucose insulin resistance are when you gravitate towards or crave breads, pasta, rice, or potatoes, if that's your favorite food. You get cranky or irritable. They call it hangry these days. If you miss a meal or it's delayed. You have a hard time getting started in the morning and you need caffeine to get going. You have that poor memory, that brain fog. You have a difficult time losing the extra belly fat. Even though you're exercising, going to the gym an hour a day, you have these binges or uncontrolled eating episodes where you just can't stop yourself. You crave sweets, but the big dilemma is eating the sweets doesn't relieve the cravings. It makes you crave more. And that is so mean. You get hungry for sweets after meal, even after a big meal. It's like, okay, now I need sweet. Why? Because you're not getting that sugar into the cells. So the brain is perceiving we're still hungry. You feel fatigue after meals or in that mid-afternoon, like I said, that afternoon slump. And finally, you start to get increased thirst, appetite, and increased urination. But here's the thing, guys. These are just the tip of the iceberg symptoms. When you're experiencing these symptoms outside, the big problem is what's happening underneath. Remember the Titanic. It didn't go down because of the little bit of the iceberg above. It went down because of the iceberg part that it didn't see. And that's the same thing with you. It's so common for somebody to just die suddenly of heart disease because they don't know that all this stuff's happening. And insulin damages the vessel linings and it causes the problems with heart disease and blood pressure, etc. It causes inflammation. And this inflammation causes the increase of a protein called C-reactive protein. And this can set the stage for cancers of all types. It also affects the lungs and inflammation in the lungs. And finally, it affects the brain. And people who have early Alzheimer's or even moderate or late onset Alzheimer's can have problems with blood sugar that have been going on for decades, slowly but surely deteriorating the parts of the brain they need. And finally, diabetes. I mean, diabetes is like that thing that people fear, but they figure they're okay until they get the diagnosis. And the diagnosis doesn't happen. It's been happening for decades. So there's symptoms, there's, the excess urination, there's infections, there's thirst and fatigue and hunger and vision changes. And also it leads to, because of the changes in the vessel walls, because of the elevations of glucose damaging tissue, heart disease, kidney disease, neuropathy, strokes, retinopathies, damage to the eyes, the retinas in the back of the eyes, and cause blindness, and peripheral vascular disease, which can end up with some poor people in amputation. Really sad. So too many carbs for their metabolism leads to those symptoms and things that I just shared with you. And in review, mistake number 3 was the wrong quantity and the wrong quality of fats. Mistake number 2, not enough non-starchy vegetables. And mistake number 1, too many carbs for their metabolism. And I would throw in and sneak in, I snuck in and talked a little bit about one other mistake that people make, which is eating too frequently and keeping levels of insulin up elevated in their system all day long, putting the brakes on fat burning and causing the damages. So what I want to do is, before I go further, the next things we're going to talk about are some lab testing, the progression of this from start to where the diabetes or metabolic syndrome or diagnosis comes about. So how you can prevent yourself from going there, how you can test yourself, how you can test yourself at home, and what tests to request from your doctors. But before we do that, because I know that some people, it's a busy workday and need to leave early, maybe only allocated an hour to be here. I just want to share with you something special that's going to help you to have an opportunity to work with me to get this resolved. And then I'm going to go back in and have another, 25, 30 minutes of presentation to share with you. So before I go into those labs, I want you to get a sense of what is it all gloom and doom? Am I doomed because I'm 62 and now I have had all these problems for years? No, you're not. So if you've heard some stuff and go, wow, I think I may have this problem and I don't know what to do about it. Yeah, I've read about this, but I don't know how to put it into place. So if you're ready to solve it once and for all and get your energy back, clear your brain fog, look and feel your best, live life on your terms, not according to like what your body tells you, no, I can't do. I don't want you to miss this opportunity. Get support from me. So I'm going to tell you about this now. I'll take about 5 minutes to tell you about this, and then we're going to go back and do the presentation. And the reason I'm telling you about it is because I have a couple of special things that are limited to today, and I want to make sure that you get the opportunity to get it if this calls for you. So I created a program. We called it the Sweet Spot Solution. Makes sense, right? We're trying to solve this, get into our sweet spot. I call our sweet spot that spot where everything's balanced. The blood sugar is balanced. The hormones are balanced. The blood pressure is balanced. And I can help you to get into that through what I put together in this Sweet Spot program. And I just wanted to let you know that this is what some of you have heard of JJ Virgin. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She has written profusely. She's very popular in the health space. What she says is Dr. Ritamarie is the go-to practitioner when it comes to blood sugar balancing. She has a unique approach that no one else is teaching. I follow it with my son, Grant, who has residual brain injury from a serious car accident. So I just thought that makes sense. I just wanted you to know that this isn't something I have just made up in my backyard. I want to share this with you. And when you come and join us for this, we're going to teach you how to get your sugar in balance, and we're going to teach you strategies to keep it in balance. We're going to give you customized meal plans, teach you how to customize them to you. We're going to give you exercise routines. You can do some of them in 30 seconds. We're going to give you 2-minute stress release breaks and sleep enhancement strategies and timing tricks, because all of that plays in. And I'm going to share with you how all those play in later in the presentation. So stick around, please, if you can. But if you have to leave early, I understand, and you can always come back and watch this another time. So you're going to get life-changing, energy-enhancing fully supported journey. We're going to be there for you. We're going to give you modules that you can watch on your own. We're going to give you checklists and recipe guides and a step-by-step. And I'm going to guide you through a 30-day metabolic reset that's going to reverse that insulin resistance. And depending on how long it's been there, it may partially reverse it, but it's going to start to improve the sensitivity of those cells to insulin. And you're going to see major changes on your blood sugar. In addition to the core program, which you can go through at your own pace, and it's step-by-step, you're going to get 4 months access to my office hours. You're going to get individualized coaching support through some of my coaches who monitor what we call your progress journal. So you can say, I'm doing this, I need help with that, and you get support. I don't know of any online programs that offer that. We're going to have an interactive online community, and it's very active, very helpful people. And then a library of food prep, fitness and let me say that again, a library of food prep and fitness videos. And that's so that you can actually see this stuff in action. You're not just reading about it. There's phenomenal stuff in there. So in addition, what I'm offering for this period of time, let me just say, you can get into the Sweet Spot Solution any time of the year. But if you get in during our special once a year launch period, we actually offer you extra support. So if you get in now, we're going to give you weekly live group coaching and support calls with me starting April 30th and going through August 6th. Once a week, we get together. You get to ask questions. I get to know you. And I love how the people that come to the calls regularly, I get to know them. I get to support them. And even years later, some of those folks are still coming to our community calls. So you might be wondering, well, how do I get this? You can go to thesweetspotsolution.com. And how much is it going to cost me? Well, for what we give you, we could easily make a case for charging well into the multi-thousands of dollars. It's worth it. Just the time alone on the calls with me can be worth a lot to you. And then the support you get from my coaches and the support you get in the Facebook group, plus the recipes and videos and all the step-by-step information. But we decided that we were going to charge $19.97, $2,000. It's a fraction of what it would cost you to go to a functional medicine doctor, and you're going to get a whole lot more support. It's a fraction of what it would cost you to go away and go to a retreat center. However, we decided that was going to push a lot of people away who needed it. So we decided to make the everyday price of the program $9.97. And if you were to have gone to my website a month ago, or you go to my website a month from now, that's what you're going to see it there at $9.97. And plenty of people have done that. But we decided that because you've been engaged in this series of education, that we are going to give it to you. And you're here today taking time out of your life. We're going to give it to you for $4.97. So if you want to get on the sweetspotsolution.com/now, and the incentive for doing it now, rather than coming back and doing it later, tomorrow, the next day, is that we have a couple of quick action bonuses. We have one that's called, it's an adrenal thyroid rebalancing video collection that from our Spring into Vitality was a seminar that we did, a 3-day live seminar, 3 years in a row. And this particular one was geared towards, it was called the HPAT axis. It's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So we're going to give you access to the ones that we talked about, the thyroid and the adrenal. We're going to give you a Conquer Your Food Cravings and Tame Emotional Eating training with Tricia Nelson. Here's the deal. A lot of people know what to do and can't do it because of the emotional eating. And we do give you support within the program, my own emotional eating, but we brought this expert in so that she can teach you and have some strategies for really doing the program without that encumbrance. We also have another quick action bonus for the first 19 that register by midnight is access to a program I call Brain. It's a self-paced program that helps you to access your brain and assess your brain and neurotransmitter function. It also teaches you what diet and lifestyle factors are impacting brain function and what nutrients, foods, and herbs you can use to improve moods, memory, and overall brain function. Now, why is this important and why would I offer this with the Sweet Spot? Well, we talk a lot about the impact of the sugars on the brain and how it can lead to so many imbalances that can lead down the road to dementia. But what about now? What are you doing now that you can use to get your moods to be better? So many people we deal with are just struggling with anxiety and depression. And if that's not enough, there's one more ultra quick if you register before the end of this training. So if you have to hop off, go ahead and do this. It's the Adrenal Jumpstart Recipe Collection. And it's got recipes to recharge your adrenals and menus that activate your energy and herbs and nutrients to give you back your mojo. And that's all included because they all work synergistically together. If you've had a blood sugar issue for a long time, it's been gnawing away at your adrenals. If you've been under stress for a long time, it's been gnawing away at your adrenals. So we're going to offer you this as an adjunct to the program. And we recommend that you go through Sweet Spot and then you do this as the next step after to repair the damage. So as a review, the investment, it's a value of over $3,500. We normally price it at $997 and it's yours for $497. And all you have to do is go to thesweetspotsolution.com/now. So my team has put that in the chat there's a link at the top, and that's it. That's all I wanted to say. So if you want to jump in early, go for it. And if not, I have some amazingly valuable information to share with you. So let's jump in. Oops, why is that there twice? It's there twice. Okay. So before we jump into the labs, I want you to understand that if you have diabetes, you've been diagnosed with diabetes or insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, it's not something that you just developed overnight. It's been building, and for upwards of it could be 30 years, decades. And it starts really simple and innocuously with hyperinsulinemia. Your body's making too much insulin because you're probably eating too many of the carb-rich foods that are causing it to need a lot. And you may not notice any symptoms then, or you just might notice that you're getting a little extra weight around the middle. The next stage that we move into is called reactive hypoglycemia. That's where people go, oh, I have to eat every 2 hours or I get grouchy. Reactive hypoglycemia. You're producing a lot of insulin and then it just starts to bombard all of it into the cells and boom, it goes down really low. And then you're like, whoa, I don't even have enough sugar to get to my brain to work. So those are the kind of symptoms there. But I will point out to you that some people who think that they're hangry, right? Irritable, hungry at the same time. They think it's because their sugar's too low. And in reality, I've seen that a lot of times it's because the sugar's too high. So we want to address this. And that's where the meters come in. By the way, I'm going to talk about a test that you can use to discover back at this first stage of hyperinsulinemia, back over here, that you are able to figure it out with one of the tests I'm going to teach you. So the next stage is something I coined pre-insulin resistance. It's before you get to the point where the doctors are saying you have insulin resistance, which is a very specific blood sugar over 100. Maybe your fasting blood sugar is a little high, maybe in the 90s, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's still normal, but your postprandial, meaning after eating sugars, are going way too high. And that's there's another test that you can do to determine if you're in that state. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we have insulin resistance. Doctor says, oh, your glucose is between 100 and 120. You have insulin resistance. It's pre-diabetic. And what I found that a lot of folks who've come to me and then subsequently reversed it have been told by their doctor, well, there's nothing you can do. Just try to lose weight, eat better, and come back in 6 months and we'll test you again. And if you're diabetic, we'll put you on meds. Wrong answer, doc. It's not good. And being in this state, they can be compromising function and having those peripheral nerve damage. Most of you on this call, my venture is to say that you're at the pre-insulin resistance or beyond state. Some of you already know you have diabetes. Some of you might still be at the hyperinsulinemia state. So I just encourage you to do something about it before you get too far along. Because the next state is metabolic syndrome, and that's the combination of insulin resistance and high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, low HDLs. And at this point, you're at a lot higher risk of heart attack and stroke. These are very, very likely sequelas here. And a lot of times they're not going back and associating it with the blood sugar imbalance. I believe that my own parents could have been saved had they known about this and they've been tested properly. And then we have diabetes, right? So if you don't progress to full-blown diabetes, even if you don't, it's been changes that are happening over and over. And I'll show you a couple of pictures that show you the kind of changes that are happening unbeknownst to you in your system right now. So there's a myth in our society that as we age, we go downhill. And that myth keeps us locked into this expectation. Well, I'm in my 60s. Of course I have a walk with a cane and I have to take medication. No, wrong. I'm 63 and I wasn't the picture of health younger, but now I have learned how to use these strategies, and I've worked with people in my programs that have used these strategies, and they look younger now than they did decades ago. So you don't have to do this. You can take changes now, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. You can make the changes that can turn some of this stuff around. And you can be kind of like these guys. These are people in their older age. They don't believe that they get older and they get more decrepit. Our lady in the middle is Ernestine, who's a bodybuilder. She's 84. 84. Our ladies down here are in their 90s doing gymnastics and this yoga pose that most people at any age can't do. There's no strings, guys. She's just doing that. That's how strong she is. And our gentlemen up at the top are in their hundreds, I think 105 and 107. And they are doing racing, bicycle racing, and running racing. Okay. So you don't have to aspire to be athletic like this, but you might aspire to just feel good, feel good in your tissues and be able to smile and laugh and go on vacation and have good relationships. This is what I want you to do. I want you to commit to the outcome and make it a high priority. Make your health a high priority. Make it a high priority to determine how your blood sugars are doing and what you're going to do about it. If you have any of those symptoms we talked about earlier, the carb cravings, the belly fat, the exhaustion, any of those, we showed you 10 of them, then you need to make this a high priority. I wish my parents had made it a high priority. Picture of my mom and dad and my whole family, all my siblings. There's a lot of us, 9 of us, plus the in-laws, the brother-in-laws are there. And this is a picture shortly before my mom passed away. So this is the last picture we have of the whole family together, at least the last one I have of the whole family together. And you see everybody's happy. Mom and dad are there, right? But shortly thereafter, my mom died suddenly of a heart attack. And I believe in my heart that had she known and followed what I'm teaching you here today, what I'm going to teach you in the Sweet Spot program, that she would still be around and we would not be every day dealing with the loss of mom too soon. So dad died 2 years later. Same thing, sudden died of heart attack. My sister Kathy over here, she died about 10 years, 15 years after them, maybe 12 years after my dad, or 11 years, something like that. She died of lymphoma. It was the same thing. She started to gain weight. Nobody took it seriously. Nobody talked to her about her diet. And I believe that she could have been on a different path and she'd been following this. So it's never too late. And it was heartbreaking to lose these family members. And I want to teach you what to do. So are you ready to learn how to detect and correct blood sugar imbalance? Type in. If you're ready to detect and correct, type in. Okay? Type it into the chat because I want to share this stuff and we're almost at the end. So how do you detect it? Well, there's some lab tests that you can do. You don't have to do the lab tests, guys. You can just use the symptom survey. You can just use the symptom survey and figure it out. And the symptoms that I showed you earlier on, and if anybody wants it, type into the chat that you would like to get access to our insulin resistance quiz so you can get a score as to where you lie. If anybody's interested in that, type it in and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. We'll send it in a follow-up. Yuppers, everybody say yuppers, ready, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So there are some tests that if your doctors knew how to do them, they could detect you at that early stage of hyperinsulinemia. So I have this gift for you, the drritamarie.com/lab test guide. For those of you who have come through all this whole educational series we've been putting on, you might already have access to it. If you haven't, just hop on over there to drritamarie.com/lab test guide. And what I'm going to show you are some slides from here. You don't have to get the blood tested. I'm not saying you do, because in a lot of places it's hard to do because of the laws or whatever, but it's a good thing to do and it's a good early screening. And I didn't get these tests done after I, had all my health issues, I just assumed that I had these problems and I changed my diet. Now you don't have to assume, but if you're willing to just make extreme dietary and lifestyle changes, like identify, I don't mean extreme, like, oh my God, you're going to be living in feeling like you're deprived, but I mean that there are going to be changes that are going to shift your biochemistry in an extreme way. So if you don't have a doctor that's willing to run these tests, after you read this, after you learn this and you ask, just go to runmylabs.com. I've made arrangements with that labs to run it directly for you. So let's talk about fasting insulin. Remember, we talked hyperinsulinemia. That was the early stage. It could be 30 years before you actually go on to develop full-blown metabolic syndrome or diabetes. The fasting insulin can be detected. Now, how much insulin should you have when you're not eating? Not very much, guys, because there's nothing to digest and put in the cells. So the baseline is 2 to 5, ideally under 3. 2 to 3 would be what you would be targeting for. Because remember, insulin puts the brakes on fat burning. Insulin puts the brakes on a hormone called growth hormone, and growth hormone helps you to store lean muscle mass. So if you're working out at the gym, but you're not developing muscles, could be this, right? So we want to look there. The sad part is when I looked at the reference range for Quest Labs, it's 2 to 19. And I'm like, say what? That's a pretty wide range, isn't it? How could between 2 and 19 be normal? That's 1,000% difference from the low to the high. And I started getting to thinking about, well, what if like temperature in our body, there's a fine range, 98 to 99 is probably considered a normal temperature. That's a 1% variation, right? If it goes over 99, you're considered to have a low-grade fever. But what if blood temperature had a variation of 1,000%? A lot of illness would be missed, right? What if blood pressure had a variation? A lot of illness would be missed. And I'm going to tell you that with fasting insulin in that range, a lot of illness is missed. A lot of pre-insulin resistance and the damage to the nerves is being missed. So optimal range, I'd say 2 to 3. Why do we want to keep the insulin low when we're not eating and have it respond when we're eating in a way that doesn't bring it up too high, but brings it up just the right amount? Insulin fuels cancer cells. It damages the endothelial lining of your blood vessels. It damages mitochondria, which make energy. It increases the kidney retention of sodium, which can lead to high blood pressure. It impacts the thyroid conversion from the inactive T4 to the active T3, which can result in low energy. It decreases DHEA, which is a hormone produced by the adrenal glands. They consider it the anti-aging hormone. It increases sex hormone binding globulin, which gobbles away and holds on to testosterone and estrogen. So even though the levels look good in the blood, they're actually not at a level where you can actually use it because they're bound. It increases the synthesis of triglycerides, which are fat particles floating in the blood. It increases the loss of magnesium in the urine, and actually that makes insulin resistance worse because magnesium is one of the nutrients that insulin needs to escort it with the glucose into the cells. And then it stimulates what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight-flight nervous system. And let me just tell you, when cortisol gets elevated in your system, you're not feeling very smart. You're not going to have good digestion, and you're going to have a rapid heart rate. You're going to be breathing heavily, and you're going to be shaky, but you're trying to get away from a tiger, right? We want to keep those levels down. Plus cortisol, which is the hormone that gets secreted when the sympathetic nervous system is going on, that is actually something that increases blood sugar because it goes and tries to grab away stored sugar. So lab tests. Another one is hemoglobin A1C. That's actually the percentage of your red blood cells that are coated with glucose, sharp and scraggly. I'll give you an example. If you've ever as a kid made taffy and you heated up molasses, I think it is, and then you pull it, it gets like these sharp, brittly things. That's what happens to your red blood cells when they're coated with too much sugar. And what that does is damages your blood cell linings. Bad for your blood vessels. Bad for your blood vessels, increasing the risk of damage to your arteries and then the accumulation of plaques, which can lead to heart attack and stroke. So we use the hemoglobin A1C which ideally should be 4.5 to 5. We use it to determine what the average glucose has been over the course of 3 to 4 months. And so I'm going to show you a chart in a second, and it's in the book. So all of this stuff is in the book. You'll be able to refer back to it. But the medical system says if it's below 5.7, you're good. 5.7 and above is considered insulin resistance. But remember how far along insulin resistance is on my continuum, right? They're not catching you when you're having those earlier changes. So I'll give you an example. This is not, in the book, there's a more detailed chart, but this is just to give you a general idea. 5.7 would be close to, like, it's probably around 120 is what 5.7 would be. What that means is that you're running around with an average glucose of 120, which means that at times it's going way above and at times it's going below. Like, especially if your fasting is 80. So say your fasting is 80 or 90 or even 100 and it goes to 120, on average, it means it's going much higher to keep it average that way. Okay. So it's not a good situation. Lots of damage happens. We had a guy in one of our programs who said he'd never had this tested before. And he, got it at a health fair and he decided to have it tested. And he's never been told he was insulin resistant or diabetic. His fasting glucose had crept into the 90s, but that's considered normal. When he had his hemoglobin A1C tested randomly, it was at 10. 240 was his average. And he was not considered diabetic, but tell you what, all those retinal changes, the kidney changes, the peripheral neuropathies, big time they'd been happening. And now he's found that he does have retinal damage as a result of not catching this sooner. So catch this sooner. Commit to getting this tested or commit to making the changes that are going to help keep you in balance, getting a blood glucose meter, which leads me to that. And we talk in the little booklet about the fact that you can do a finger prick test or you can do a continuous glucose meter. I love the continuous glucose meter. In our Sweet Spot Solution program, we give you charts and we give you instructions and videos on how to test your own glucose and then how to interpret it once you do. So let me just show you why it's important to check what we call postprandial. After we eat something, you start out with a blood sugar a certain level, unless you're diabetic already, it's going to be within this reasonable range. Some of these folks are already diabetic, they're at 120, but we're looking at the starting and then we look at how does it peak. In most cases, you can see they have the peak of the curve right there around that 60-minute mark. In some cases, a little bit sooner. So somewhere between 45 minutes and 60 minutes for most people, maybe a little bit later, you're going to see a peak. You're going to start, say, at 90 before your meal, and it's going to go up to maybe 120, and then it's going to come back down to 90 at 2 hours. See, at 2 hours? But most doctors aren't teaching people how to do this. They're teaching them to check before the meal and then at 2 hours for diabetics. And as long as it's below 140 at 2 hours, you're good. No, you're not. No, you're not. That's dangerous information. So I like to have people keep close to this low line. These are people who have never been diagnosed yet. These people have a really nice insulin glucose curve. That's where I like to see it. So I teach people, don't let your top number go above 110. Well, chances are, if you're already diabetic or insulin resistant, that's going to be too hard to do right away. But you will follow the guidelines. You will be able to get into that range rather quickly. And why is it so important to keep it there? Well, there's a study that showed, and there's plenty of these, that anytime the sugar goes above 100, it causes damage to the pancreas in the cells called the beta cells that make insulin. And do you ever wonder why somebody is, let me just distinguish between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 diabetes is when the person doesn't make enough insulin and the blood sugar goes high because there's not enough insulin to bring it down. Type 2 diabetes is when the insulin resistance has developed over time and the body can no longer keep it within that normal fasting range. But what's happening over time is that the pancreas is getting more and more damaged by those high levels of sugar and they can't make it. And eventually a lot of type 2 diabetics, do you ever notice this? They end up having to take insulin, not because they were born not making enough, not because they have an autoimmune disease, but because they wore out their pancreas. And the combination of that high levels of insulin, insulin resistance, damage to the cells is creating a serious, serious problem. So this study showed that every small increase in the 2-hour glucose tolerance test result corresponded to how much beta cell failure was happening. And the higher the person's sugar rose, even within the quote unquote normal range, the more those beta cells were failing them. To make it even worse, let's look at the eyes. Normal eye on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is diabetic retinopathy. Those little balls that you're seeing in there, not normal, and those are creating problems with the visual fields. But here's the thing. 60% or more of the people with the retinopathy, the retinal changes, had glucose below, the fasting glucose was below 126. It wasn't even in the diabetic range for 60% of them. For 7.5 to 13%, that's a pretty big amount, that they had glucose below 100. How many people are floating around now with their glucose in the 90s and happening there? That's what happened to the client I was just telling you about. And only 1 in 10 had abnormal post-meal glucose problems. So, normal by medical standards. So when you learn the right way to do these tests, and you can test yourself, you're going to prevent this. So fasting, going back to the person who had the 10 and he has the retinal damage, he's gotten his hemoglobin A1C down to 5.2 by putting into practice the things that I teach in the sweet spot and the things I'm teaching you here. So I recommend that everybody has a glucose meter. And one of the reasons is that we had a really scary thing happen to one of our students in our nutritional endocrinology program. Her daughter had been traveling overseas, got very sick, had a viral infection, and it wasn't going away. And she'd been to doctors and they kept saying, hey, you're stressed, it's a viral thing, etc. And they didn't give her anything to do about it. So when she got home, mother's watching her and kind of trying to figure out how to help her. And one day she went into her room in the morning and the daughter would not wake up. She was in a coma. Rushed her to the emergency room and found out that she was in diabetic ketoacidosis. This was not a girl that had been diagnosed with diabetes. She just had these vague, weird symptoms that weren't clearing up. And long story short, she ended up having a blood sugar of over 600, a hemoglobin A1C of 14, and nobody'd ever picked that up. She's 19 years old. Right. So these tests should be done in young people, but it also should be done in people who have any kind of symptoms. Our student, Annette, said basically that she thinks that every household should have it, just like they have a thermometer. And when somebody's not feeling well, test their blood sugar as well as their temperature. Very, very important. So normal blood sugar management involves your liver and your pancreas. Okay, pancreas produces the insulin. It also produces glucagon to keep things steady. The liver stores sugar in the form of glycogen. And there's beautiful symphony of information passing back and forth. But it's influenced by genetics. It's hugely impacted by stress. It's affected by dietary changes and dietary habits. And it's very much shaped by lifestyle. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, in that booklet that I'm giving you, you have these the normal optimal ranges and some notes about them. So make sure you download that. And then if you're having any trouble with your docs, just go to thisrunmylabs.com and you'll see my special page there and you'll be able to order whatever of those tests that you want. So we've been through the hazards of paleo, keto, and plant-based. We've talked about this at-home way to test. We've talked about the lab tests. I want to talk about the strategies that are important along with the diet and give you some relief methods, and then we'll go into a long-range plan. We're almost at the end. Nutrition is critical, right? It has to be balanced, the balanced omegas, the balance between carbohydrates, fat, and protein. It's got to be movement in there. Movement is something that can help you bring down the glucose levels as long as it's not too much, right? If you're in a stress mode because you're exercising too heavily, too hard, too long, too frequently, you're going to end up with cortisol and it's going to raise sugars. But otherwise, there's some amazing things. There's some burst training exercises that you can do in 30 seconds or less. And if you stay to the end, I have a link that I'll give you to a burst training document that I put together. So we want it to be balanced, and we want it to be balanced with sleep. We want a low stress lifestyle. We want to be able to manage the stress and keep those cortisol levels where they should be rather than way through the roof. When cortisol levels go down, it increases blood sugar because the cortisol thinks there's a tiger, even if you're just getting frustrated by the news or the computer that's not working, which is, with our low stress thresholds, a lot of this stuff is causing problems. So what I want us to do is harness the power of appreciation. And let's just take a moment to get together with breath and appreciation. So right hand over your heart, left hand over your belly. Take a long, slow, deep breath. Everybody do it together. Like go. Awesome. Awesome. And I'm giving you a really abbreviated version. And in our program, we have a 30-day stress transformation piece that we take you through. So I want you to take some breaths and then think about something you appreciate. My favorite thing is to go to the beach. I just go to my favorite spa and I go into the water and I just feel it and I feel heavenly and I just sit with appreciation for that experience. Or I'll go outside and feel the sun on my skin, but it may be different for you. So just sit with, where do you appreciate? And let's do 2 or 3 breaths where you're just sitting in appreciation. Let your shoulders drop, your neck soften, and just really be there in that special place. And set the intention that you're going to bring back that feeling. And the cool part about your nervous system is it doesn't know the difference between really being there or just pretending. Just pretending. So come back, be ready to continue, and let me know how that feels. So we talked about the nutrition, movement, stress. Sleep is super important. Study after study after study show that even one night of bad sleep creates insulin resistance the next day. So, you can adapt to this if you do have to have a bad night of sleep. You've been called on duty or you've got family members that are sick. Then the next day, be super careful about your food intake. And finally, the one that most people overlook is optimal timing and rhythms. It's super important that all of these things be balanced. 4 out of 5 is not good. And 3 out of 5 is not good enough either. Tell you my story in a moment with my sugar, but it's how are you eating and what's the spacing between the meals? How do you eat in relationship to exercise in terms of bedtime and awakening time? And we just don't have time to go into all the details of this right now, but suffice it to say, start moving your last meal of the day back at least 3 hours from bedtime. Your dinner and your breakfast spaced at least 12 hours apart. And then move towards 4 to 6 hours between meals, and that's going to help. Now, how do you get there? You might have trouble with it. That's where the support comes into play. You hear a lot about intermittent fasting these days. I've been talking about this in my Sweet Spot program since 2011. I have a 19-page document that's included in there that talks about all the research I did with regards to intermittent fasting. But it's leaving the space, the white space between meals so that the insulin levels get to go down, the fat burning starts to happen, and the healing and cleansing happens. Somebody said to me the other day, it sounds like what you're trying to do between meals is like a little mini version of what happens overnight, where when there's no food in the system, our bodies get to cleanse. And I said, yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Great way to look at it. So immediate relief methods. We talked about the heart math with the breathing and appreciation. That's this one over here. These are my chocolate bonbons that have coconut in them, and that's MCT oil, and it produces ketones. If you don't understand about that, you will, but I included a recipe guide in the series that got you here. Burst training, just get on and do 30 seconds of exercise, incorporating lots of green leafy vegetables, omega-3 fats like chia seeds can bring your blood pressure sugar down when it's going up. And then I have this great beverage that I have people drink is put lemon in their water and maybe a little cayenne and do that at the first thing in the morning, but you can sip that throughout the day. So we've gone through everything on this list except for the long-term plan. So let's look at what do you do long-term? You've got some immediate relief techniques. You've learned about the things that are hurting you. Now, what do? I want you to look at what is that vision? How do you put this into place? How do you eat, avoid those 3 mistakes, right? Get your fats balanced, get your carbohydrates balanced, eat more leafy greens. How do you do all that? Well, you have to start with a vision. What is it you want? Do you want to continue to do what you're doing and go, okay, it's another year gone by and I tried this one and I tried that and I read this book, and where do you actually want to get this happening? Do you want to have good relationships? Do you want to travel? What is it that you want? You can't expect to eat the food that big food puts out, those processed foods, the bagels, the breads, the pizzas, the cookies, crackers, cakes, and pies, and get results by just taking a bunch of supplements. Not to say you can't learn to make all your favorite foods in ways that are healthier. I teach that, and I've got tons of recipes for pizzas and cookies and pies and all this stuff in the Sweet Spot program. So you want to get to the root cause, because if you don't get to the root cause, you're just going to keep having disease after disease popping up all over, symptom after symptom. And a lot of these have the same ones. And you must look at blood sugar as an underlying cause. So remember this continuum. Where are you in this continuum? I would venture to say you could test and figure it out. You could start testing your glucose at home and figure it out. But whatever it is, you want to start moving backwards rather than continuing to move forwards. And move yourself into this joyful life. Like, this can be yours. You can have a joyful life. When was the last time you felt like jumping for joy? The blood sugar balancing system, what you need to do. Now, this is a summary of what you need to do, and we can support you through this when you do a 30-day personalized metabolic reset. We help you to personalize it. We give you it, but you have to keep those insulin receptors like unstimulated for 30 days, the lowest amount of insulin that you can. So we're going to design a 30-day metabolic reset, and amazing things happen. We've had people lose 9 inches off their waist in 30 days. We've had people go off thyroid medication within like 3 months of doing this metabolic reset. It's amazing, the kind of stuff. You must need to learn to do your own home testing and support. And if you're not wanting to stick your finger with a needle and get a little bit of blood out, which doesn't hurt, you will be able to do this because you're going to be taught how to monitor by your symptoms, how to actually define. And if you don't, then we're going to give you a really, just a basic metabolic reset diet to follow. Make it a high priority. Like I said before, I wish my parents had made it a high priority. You're at a place in this presentation, you've learned a lot, and you need to make a choice. Door number 1, 2, or 3. What's your choice going to be? Are you going to sit back and cross your fingers and hope for the best? Are you going to continue to read books and get yourself a little bit more confused? Or are you going to take some action? Are you going to find a functional medicine practitioner that can walk you through this? And this is a great option. It's just a much more costly option. Minimum $500 to get started. And then, for several months of visits and tests and all, there's going to be several $1,000s probably of assessments when you do that, because that's what most functional medicine practitioners do. And they're really not going to sit with you and go over exactly what to eat and how to customize it like we will in our program. Or you can go away to one of these amazing retreat centers and go for 3 weeks to a month. There's OHI in California and Austin. There's the Tree of Life out in Arizona. There's Hippocrates in Florida. But it will set you back a good $3,000 to do any of those for the full 3 weeks. They're usually around $1,000 a week. Some of them are higher, like OHI is one of the lower ones. Tree of Life is about $10,000 to $12,000 for their 3-week program. And Hippocrates is around $10,000 for their 3-week program. You will get served the food. You won't have any temptations. You can't go to the vending machine and grab a Snickers bar in the middle of the afternoon. You will be treated. You will be pampered. You will be really taught to do all these things. The big issue is that when you get back, you're going to need support as well. So the best option is to do one of these retreats and then come back and work with us through the Sweet Spot so that we can maintain it. Because the experience that I've had is people will go away and do these $10,000 retreats, and then within 3 months, they're back to the Snickers bars. It's just heartbreaking to see that. You can keep learning. You can keep studying. There is a lot to learn. And even if you learn it all, unless you have the support and accountability, you might not do it. And if that's been your situation, that you have a track record of knowing, I'm going to do this, and 3 weeks later, kind of like New Year's resolutions that are all down the toilet by the end of the month of January, then you really are a good candidate for coming to us, because we're going to give you the step-by-step. We're going to teach you what to do. We're going to give you food. We're going to give you recipes. We're going to teach you how to test. We're going to teach you how to do all the other pieces, the fitness, the stress relief. We're going to teach you how to deal with your sleep. We're going to teach you all of this, and we're going to be there to support you. And I'm going to just summarize again what's included. This was Jan in her 40s, Jan in her 50s. She wanted to lose the little extra belly fat and have some really sculpted arms. She said, I want arms like yours. And I said, okay, great. Well, she did this, and this was shortly after she did her first 30-day metabolic reset. And her daughter said, let's go do a fitness contest. And she actually won a prize for her age group. She's fake tanned, by the way. Her skin tone is more like in the first one, but that's what they do when you do those things. But she thought it was great fun. And this was Alan. This was when I met Alan, and I had hired him to help me with some marketing projects. And one of them was related to the Sweet Spot. And he was like, this looks good. I'm going to do it. And this is him after. So this was late 2016 when we first started working together. And this is him, say winter 2017. So that was actually like February, March. And this is what he did. I mean, he's lost, he at that point, he'd lost like 50, 60 pounds. He got off his thyroid medication. He was feeling great. And all because he followed this protocol and he had the support to do it. And then Beatrice, who you might have heard her speak on some of my calls, but she came to us after the diagnosis of prediabetes, fasting glucose about 120. And the doctor said, just come back in 6 months so maybe I can put you on medication. She knew her mom had died or had serious side effects, and her uncle. And she watched people with diabetes. She goes, I'm not going there. Joined our program and had lost 75 pounds within 3 or 4 months. Doctor said, I don't think this tests are right. I think we need to get you off all your medication and do some testing. She had been on thyroid medication since she was 14 for Hashimoto's. She was on a steroid for her pituitary having shut down, and she was on other stuff as well. And they said, get off all of it. She went back. No medication. You don't need any of this. You must have been misdiagnosed. And she said, I don't think so. She went on to lose 110 pounds, and now she's in her 70s and still off the medications and feeling great. And she comes back for a refresher every year to do Sweet Spot. I think every year since we've done it, she comes back and does a refresher, which you can do when you join us for nominal fee. You can come back and do it over and over to just get the support and synergy again. So what's your dream? And what action are you going to take to put your dream into action? How are you going to get the support you need? Or are you going to just do this on your own? It's fine if you do. I'm happy if you do. I just want you to do what you need to do. I don't want to see you come back a year from now when I'm offering this again, still in the same situation and struggling with, well, what should I do? I'm giving the opportunity here. The nutrition, the movement, the stress, the sleep, and the timing. Super critical. It's called the Sweet Spot Solution. This is Claudia, who's a vision training instructor and a yoga teacher, and she had a little extra weight around the middle, maybe an extra 20 pounds. She said that she looked maybe chubby at the worst, 6-pack abs under the chub. She tried to get rid of it over and over again, but kept going back to craving. And now it's been a year and she's kept it off, and she has so much energy, and she's really launching her own business in the natural healing space. So we're going to give you the meal plans, the exercises, the stress breaks, the sleep enhancement strategies, the timing tricks, everything you need to take you through this 30-day metabolic reset with me, with my coaches, with a group, and get you the results you need. It's life-changing. It's energy enhancing, and we're going to support you every step of the way. So is it for you? It's not for everybody. If you're confused and you feel like you've tried it all and you just don't know what to do next, join us. If you feel isolated and alone and you don't really do well when you just pick up a program and try to do it without support, join us. If you love your family and want to be there for them, then definitely join them. I wish my mom had done something like this. She might still be with us today. She would have been in her 80s now. Not old, in her 80s. She's only 20 years older than me, by the way. So how it works is we've got modules. They're all self-study. We've got audio for 30 days of stress transformation, and you can repeat that over and over again for the rest of your life if you want. You have full access to it. You've got the meal makeovers with the menu planner and the recipe guide. And then for the metabolic reset, we have checklist assessments and tracking tools. We have fitness videos. We have food preparation videos. You get a year of access to the site and the Facebook group. And as I said earlier in the presentation, if you were here, we could make a case for charging $3,000. That's a fraction of the price it would cost you to go away to a retreat. And we could make a case for $19.97. It'd be totally worth it. And our normal price that a lot of people have paid is $9.97. And on our website, it'll be back to that price within the next few weeks, and it'll be there until the next time we launch this. So for right now, you're able to get it because you're part of this for $4.97. And if you go to thesweetspotsolution.com now, I highly recommend that you do that. And yes, there's a payment plan. There's a 3-pay plan available. So if you're concerned about putting out the full amount right away, you could spread it across 3 months. And then there's the bonuses. You get 4 months of access to my office hours calls. You get my coach reading your journal and helping you every step of the way by email. You've got the community and you've got the food prep library. These are what's going to support you through. And that's just more detail on that. We don't have to go into that. That's the community though. You know, that's part of the community. That's the big, those are our practitioners. And it's a fraction of them that came to one of our events, and we took a picture, and that's me, of course, and that's Lynn, who's our head mama coach. She's amazing, and she takes care of everybody and makes sure everybody has what they need. She's also an amazing coach and researcher on her own. That's Pam, and she monitors the journals, and that's Marcia, and she monitors the Facebook. And the fourth one, that's your let me just say something about this. When you hear about a recipe, you read about it, okay, I can try this. But when you see people making it and you see how it all goes together, it makes a huge difference. So we have a whole library, and it's organized by individual recipes. So you don't have to watch a whole video to find it. You just have this, 5 to 10 minute clip that tells you exactly how to make that particular food. And there's a lot of them in there that you can experiment with. You also have, and I'm going to change this because it's more than that. The calls you're going to get are, I calculated it out. They're all on the schedule already. Starting April 30th through August 6th, you are getting weekly calls with me where you can ask your questions. You can ask me about lab interpretations. You can have me help you to design your diet. And in addition to that, I pop onto Facebook and show you demos in the kitchen and lots of support like that. So go to sweetspotsolution.com now and join us for this amazing, amazing, amazing journey. I'm going to offer you a couple more quick action bonuses if you sign up right away during this early sign up period. We've got a Spring into Vitality, and I think I actually wrote that wrong on there. It's more than just thyroid and adrenal rebalancing. It's actually it's what we call the empower your inner healer. And when you empower your inner healer, you're able to heal all these things. And so we have lab testing and assessments and all sorts of things to help you with evaluating, and then treatment plans, if I could call it that way, more educational plans for you to take charge. It's an amazing 3-day event that we did in person. You get all the videos, 3 days worth. You get all the handouts, tons of them, recipe guides, checklists, assessments, everything you need to help you step in. And that's something we would give you towards the end of the Sweet Spot, after you've done the metabolic reset and you're ready for, okay, what's next? How do I continue to do this and take this into my life, into other areas of my life? You also get this this recording I did with Trisha Nelson last year on emotional eating. And so many people sabotage themselves because the emotional eating, it's like, okay, I think I know what to do, but then, okay, the chocolate's calling my name. The Cheetos are calling my name because, I'm upset about something. We're going to give you some support there, and that's going to help you to be successful here. We're also going to give you access to a program I call Brain, and it's basically a self-paced program that takes you through assessing brain and neurotransmitter function, looking at diet factors that are impacting your brain, and then what foods, nutrients, and herbs can you use to help with mood, with memory, and with overall brain function. It's a $297 value, and you can get that for free when you register. The first to 19 of you to register by midnight. And if more than 19 of you register right here on this call, I'll give it to all of you. So don't let that stop you. Just get on and register now. And even if it goes over the 19, we'll make sure. And if you've signed up before today, go ahead and put it in there. If you've been in the program before in other years, just post a little bit about what your experience has been. And if you've already signed up today, just go ahead and type in so I can welcome you. We have this other thing, which is an adrenal jumpstart recipe collection that I put together with recipes for your adrenals. Because if you've been in a state of out of balance sugar for all this time, your adrenals have taken a hit. And in order to keep yourself balanced, you got to repair your adrenals. So we'll take the stress off your adrenals during this program, and then we want to go in and repair. So there's some recipes and menu plans and herbs and nutrients to just give you back your mojo. Because adrenal fatigue takes away our libido, just saying. So the investment, like I said, because you're here today, is $497. After this launch period, it will pop back up to $997. So you could say, well, I'm not ready. I want to do this, but I'm not ready. I'll come back in a few months. Sure, you can come back in a few months and you can give me an extra $500 and you'll miss out on all these early bonuses. Or you could do it now and you can reach out to us and say, do as much as you can. And then say, okay, I'm going to get started on this a little bit later. You'll still have access to the Facebook group. You'll still have access to the site, and you'll have access to, we can always defray some of the monthly calls, the office hours calls, and just start them later for you. But I highly recommend you do it now, because having access to weekly calls with me and my team is going to be just the thing you need to get this going. So those are the modules. And there's the bonuses, the summary of the bonuses, the 4 months access to the support calls. Those can start right away. But if you are in this crunch where I just have to get through something, maybe you're an accountant and you need to get through tax season, I don't know. Then you can start those a little bit later. You get the progress journals, you get the interactive community, and you get the food prep videos. They're all valued total at $595, which is more than what we're charging you for the program, by the way. So it's really important, and don't keep putting it off. There's always tomorrow. There's always an excuse. Like people say, there's never a perfect time to have a baby. Like, all of you waited, you'd never have them. There's never a perfect time to just jump in and take charge. And we're going to support you every step of the way. And if you're thinking that, well, you gave me enough information here, I can just do this on my own, and maybe you can, but that's a rare person that can do it without the support. So I'd highly encourage you to think about that. Have you done it up until now? Have you known what you knew? If you knew what you knew now 6 months ago, would you have been able to do it on your own? And if your answer is no, then I would say, let's just do this. This has got last time's, so I'm sorry about that, but it's the weekly calls. You're going to get the Spring into Vitality. The one you're going to get is the Empower Your Inner Hero with all the assessments and support for adrenal and thyroid. And then instead of the Ultimate Blood Sugar, we've got your adrenal collection. So sorry about that. And then $495 if you go to thesweetspotsolution.com now. So right now, I just want you to take a deep breath and tune into what you want. Like, tune into how it will feel for you to have no brain fog, for you to have energy, for you to have lost that extra weight around the middle, and for you to just feel good every day. Think about how that feels, and let's take some steps to put it into action. Think about how it'll feel to have a full tank instead of an empty tank. Think of how it'll feel to get all those obstacles out of the way and to step into your healing. And then go ahead and click the link to thesweetspotsolution.com/now, and that'll get you right in. And I'm so honored to have you here, to have you on this journey. And I look forward to connecting with you on a regular basis, getting to know you on a first name basis, getting to know what's going on with you, and supporting you on this journey. I am passionate about this because I feel like if somebody had given my mom and dad this kind of support, that they would still be with us today. And I don't want you to do that. What my parents did to us by checking out early, to your kids, your grandkids, the people who love you. I don't want you to be living in a body that is just not cooperating. I want you to get the support you need, and I want you to do it now. So go to thesweetspotsolution.com/now. And here's the link to the burst training thing. Philip, if you could put it into the chat, thesweetspotsolution.com/burst. And that'll give you access to these burst training exercises and why you can do them and how you can do them. And we also, in the Sweet Spot Solution, we have some videos of me doing various kinds of stuff. So I'll leave you with the parting words. It's a $497 investment. You can do it in 3 pays. what's it costing you not to do this? What's it been costing you up till now, and all the supplements and books and things you've been trying, in the cost of it to your relationships, the cost of it to your enjoyment of life, and the cost of it to your career. If you're not as productive as you need to be or want to be on your career, how many raises have you been turned down for? How many promotions have you been missed out on? How many are you working a part-time job making very little money versus you could be working more if you had your energy back? This is the kind of thing that if you're an entrepreneur, this could be costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost income. So make a decision now that you're going to support yourself. And whether that decision is to work with me or to keep looking and find out, but make a decision, or to do it on your own, you need to make a decision, and you need to make that decision now. What's calling for you? Because I've had situations where I wished I made a different decision. If this was available to me back in my 20s when I was suffering, the $497 investment is nothing compared to what it actually cost me. So I encourage you to do it. Rhonda, a registered nurse in Australia, has said that she's just so thrilled. I don't want to read the whole thing. You can read it on the webpage, but she's the opportunity to ask questions, the email, everything, joining the program now when all the bonuses are offered is a great way to go. She said there's always so much generosity in the support that we give you. So enjoy your food. That's what we're going to teach you. We're not teaching you deprivation. It's $497 today. And that's the end of my presentation. And I apologize for going over again. I thought I shortened it, and I'm going to shorten it again for next time. But I hope this was good. I hope this was good for you. I want this for you. I want you to have access to this information. I want you to have access to what I experience every day, which is boundless energy and the ability to think clearly, which it wasn't there when I was struggling back in my 60s. I'm in my 60s now. I feel better than I did in my 20s. Right. And I looked at a picture. I got my driver's license renewed, and I just had to get a new picture. And I looked at that picture and the old picture. I'm like, I look younger in this new picture than I did in the old picture. So it does work. And I really, really, want you to be here with us. Marila Jeannie says, thank you for all this information, and you're generous. I can't afford the sweet spot now, but I will try. I would really seriously think about how you can afford it. Rather than saying I can't afford it now, I'm going to do it later. Really think about how you can get this. Somebody said to me, my education is the most important thing. What do I have to do to make it? Right? Do I have a book to sell? You can go to my Unstoppable Health book. This is not all in a book, because if this was in a book, it still wouldn't help. You need the support of the community to take you through. Yeah, absolutely. So think about it. If you're on the fence about it and you're going, I just can't afford it now, but I really want it, I would encourage you to reach out on the chat, go to the link, and on the chat, reach out to one of my team members and have a conversation about how you can afford it. Because if this is something that's calling for you and you're struggling, you need to do it. Right. And like JJ said, there's nobody else teaching it this way. And like most of the people in my programs there's nobody that offers you the generosity and the complete support and dedication at this price. Yeah, there are $5,000 programs that offer that. Yeah, no worries. But for this, it's you can't afford not to do it if it's calling to you. So I would encourage you to rethink that and just figure out a way. So I'm going to turn the webcam on to say goodbye. sweetspotsolution.com/now. And how do I do this? I just go like that, and I go like that, and we should see each other. Let's see. There. All right. So I'm in the dark now. What happened to the light? Anyway, I'll answer some questions if you have them. I think I'm going to put my thing back up. The light is really awful here. There we go. Let's see. So chronic pain, need an answer. Get our support. I mean, chronic pain can be so related to having this issue. Having trouble losing weight on a low-fat, whole foods, plant-based diet, type 1 diabetic. Why? Why is because you're needing so much insulin. You're eating high-carb foods probably. Just went into menopause, Petra. My period stopped all of a sudden without any complaint. Grateful. Yay. But should I eat other stuff now? What does that mean? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but congratulations if you went in without complaint. What you should be eating is a whole food, plant-based diet with small amounts of animal products if that is calling to you and if your body needs it, or if that's just your way, but very small. And eat whole foods. So that's what I would say. I'd like to get past the nagging, this is Steve, symptoms of lurking like headaches, fitful sleep, vision issues. I've been doing cyclical keto and intermittent fasting for more than a year. Thanks for doing this. You're so welcome. Jeanette, I started to experience high blood glucose 116. I eat clean, but have not been able to gain weight. Can you please speak to those that are underweight? Yes. So here's the thing with underweight. Yes, I can support you there. This program is not geared towards people who are underweight, but we have plenty of folks that come in and have sugars all over the place. Some of the things that I teach for people who have extra weight or want to maintain weight are going to be different. And so we will help you to design more frequent meals, which you need to do if you're, have a high metabolic rate, and some ways to do some specific exercises to increase muscle mass. So we can definitely address those kinds of things in the program. But if your sugars are going up, then definitely this is going to be a helpful thing to do. Susan, I've been nearly vegan for a year. I've gained so much weight. What's up with that? You're probably doing the high grain. You're doing a lot of grains, not enough fat and not enough of the vegetables is most likely. I've seen a lot of people gain weight on a plant-based diet. And if you're eating gluten and you're sensitive to it, or if you're eating any foods that you're sensitive to, you need to do that. Janice, can I address blood pressure and how blood sugar levels affect it? Yeah. So the way that blood sugar levels affect it is by some of the damages that the high insulin does to the insides of the vessels, and it causes them to get stiffer and narrowed, and then the blood pressure will go up. And also, if you're under a lot of stress and you're producing cortisol, it'll cause your blood pressure to go up. Michael said, how much fat do we really need? And it does need to be diversified, or it can be simply an avocado a day. You know what, Michael, I'm going to say it depends. It depends on you. It depends on your metabolic rate. It should be diverse because avocado doesn't supply omega-3. Doesn't supply any omega-3. So we need to have a balance. We need to have a certain minimum amount of omega-3 to be able to make our prostaglandins, to control the inflammation in the body, to make hormones. Maria, can somebody have fatigue and not be depressed? Yeah, absolutely. Is it a problem with energy? Absolutely. When I was fatigued, I wasn't depressed. I was just fatigued. I was tired. My cells were not producing enough energy. So yeah, it's a problem with the mitochondria not getting what they need to produce energy. And it may be that they're not getting the glucose to go into the cells and then be able to make it because of the insulin resistance. Jeannie says, I've been drinking the right amount of water for many years, but cut back when my urine started looking very pale. Let me just say that your urine should be pale. The urine should be very pale. That's telling you that it's filtering a lot. Possibly it's because I started drinking most of it early in the day because I was waking up multiple times at night to urinate. So yeah, so there's a set amount of water based on your weight, and it's spread out across the day. And we give you a really nice chart there. And Lynn answered, you may not be absorbing it right, but you may also not be spreading it out enough either. But yeah, and there's things like hydration drops that you can try. Are other nut milks okay instead of almond? I didn't say there was anything wrong with almond. I do almond, right? But it's having a balance. Almonds are high in omega-3. So what are you going to eat that day to balance your omega-6? Almonds are omega-6. So you may alternate it, but you also may put some coconut, or you might put some other things in there. Like Lynn said. Angelica, what's the minimum requirement for omega-3? Can Dr. Remo tell us the amount of plant-based omega-3s one would have to eat in order to hit the daily? Angelica, I don't have that number exactly memorized. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of, it comes out to be like the equivalent of 3 tablespoons of chia seeds and that equivalent, but there's a chart, and you're in our program. So you can go into the chart, the omega-3 chart, and we have that in the program, and you can calculate it. We actually give you a spreadsheet where you can put what you're eating, and it calculates how much you're having, right? And it's going to be more if you have certain, issues going on in your body, but it won't be less. So, and in terms of plant-based omega-3s, the chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, I'm always eating plenty of those. but your body also needs to be able to make them, turn them into DHA and EPA. So it's really important that we have the vitamins and the minerals and the cofactors, the B vitamins, the vitamin C, the zinc, boron, etc. So those are important things as well. And you're in our practitioner training, and when you get to the fats module, which is macronutrients, module 3, you'll be able to go through that. Heidi, do you include flax oil with oils you don't recommend? What do you think of cold pressed fat? Yeah, I use flax sometimes. I just think it's better to get the whole flax seeds. I don't like flax seeds, and it's a pain, so I sometimes use it. But oils, once you press them, they start to deteriorate. And with flax, you have to make sure it's kept refrigerated. You eat it within 3 months of it being pressed. Otherwise, it's going to go bad and rancid. So, I prefer whole food fats, but sometimes we're going to end up with the non-whole food fats. Rose asks if mushrooms are okay. I love mushrooms. I eat a lot of mushrooms. Most people are fine with mushrooms, but some are allergic. Would sugar consumption have anything to do with larger red blood cells? Generally, Lindsay, the larger red blood cells have to do with a deficiency. It's called macrocytic anemia. And it's a deficiency oftentimes of vitamin B12 and vitamin B9, folate, and it doesn't allow the maturation of those. And believe it or not, bigger cells are actually less mature. How much fruit is too much, and how do I keep track? We don't know yet for you. So you're going to get a glucose meter, and then you're going to track it the way we ask you to track it at certain intervals after the meal. And then you're going to watch what happens to your glucose. And then you're going to either cut back if it's raising you too high, or we're going to teach you ways that you can combine the fruit with, say, greens, green leafy vegetables, or things like that. Like for me, mango, if I eat a whole mango, my blood sugar goes through the roof. If I eat just like a little bit of mango and I have it on a bed of romaine lettuce and I go slowly, I can eat like half a mango, right? So it's really going to be you, and you will keep track the way we teach it. Rose said, I found beet chips by Rhythm that are beets only. Are these okay? Well, it depends on how they affect your blood sugar, like Lynn said, but also most chips are not just beets. Most chips have some sort of oil and salt and other things in them. So I would look at that. But if it's just dehydrated beets, it might be fine, but you should check your blood sugar because beets are very high in sugar. You may be able to have a few. Lindsay, does Freestyle Libre draw blood? No, it's actually a little very thin fiber that's put on your arm once, pokes in, and then it just sits there for 10 days. Deborah, I used to have low blood sugar when I was in my 20s. Is it true that you're more susceptible to high blood sugar later in life? Absolutely. I know we went through it fast, and you're welcome to come back next week when we do this again to reiterate. But when I went through that sequence, usually the low sugar earlier on can predispose you to. It means you had an imbalance. So you may have overcome it, right? Yvonne, wouldn't height loss due to osteoporosis cause belly subcutaneous rolls of fat? Not if you don't have any fat there. Can I look at a recording later? If the recording comes out, we'll be happy to send you a link later. And we're also doing it again live next week. Deborah, I find that you can get over the hump of sugary foods within a few days. You don't crave it. Yes, absolutely. For me, the plant-based diet with lots of greens took away hunger. Thank you, Deborah. That's actually what I find too. And I had somebody who was working with me a really long time ago, and she said whenever she got that craving for sugar, she would appease herself and say, look, I'm going to let you have that sugary thing that you want, but first thing you have to have is some greens. And you have to eat enough greens. And then if you still want the sugar after it, I'll let you have it. And chances are she didn't need it. Ooh, Mary, I never had weight issues until I came down with both hypothyroid and adrenal fatigue. I'm wondering how I can further modify my diet so I lose the extra weight. Most of the fat I have is belly fat and core. But test your blood sugar. Test your blood sugar. Find out what's going on. Because most of the time, low thyroid and adrenal fatigue, there's a blood sugar issue in there. And if you don't fix the blood sugar issue, it doesn't matter what you do to fix the rest of it. Jeannie says, what about avocado oil? I have avocado oil. I don't, I'm not a purist about it. I just think we rely too much on oil. And I think we should minimize the amount of oil that we use. Avocado oil tends to be one that's stable with heat compared to like flax or chia or do not eat those sunflower oil and safflower oil and the ones that are in the glass jars sitting on the shelf. No, the ones that are in those dark containers that are mostly monounsaturates. Okay, Shelly, Megan, do you have a cookbook? Yeah, we have lots of recipe program collections in our program. I just epiretinal membrane. Is that the same as retinopathy? It could be. Yeah, you got to get a complete evaluation. You got to look at your blood, get the hemoglobin A1C and the insulin done, and start testing your blood sugar. Can this diet help with arthritis? Yeah, arthritis is an inflammatory condition. Some arthritis is autoimmune, and you need to get your sugars under control to manage inflammation. Is non-fasting, if non-fasting showed slightly high, 6 in the UK, that's high, but hemoglobin A1C was within the range. It depends on their range. I don't know their 3.3 would indicate a problem that the GP isn't concerned. Yeah, I think there is a cause for concern here. I definitely think there's a cause for concern here because 6 in the UK, it really should be like around 4 point something in the UK. You can look that one up. I assume you go into the ideas in great detail. Absolutely. Does it come with modules and we work at your own pace with lots of recipes? Absolutely, Barbara. Absolutely. And then you have the calls to come to and ask questions. I did come in late. I really don't get how the doctors at True North and others like McDougall could be recommend high starchy foods and still seem to be getting such good results with diabetes, heart disease, and weight loss. It varies from person to person. There are people who go to those places and don't get the results. I do see them, right? McDougall recommends a lot of starch. They aren't actually measuring people's blood sugar, right? So it varies from person to person. Carol says, will we do a replay? Watch your email later, and if we get a good replay out of this, we will send you a replay, but we're also doing it again live next week. I also want to tell you guys, you'll watch your inbox later, that on Saturday, because there's so little time on these, and I want to get so much in, on Saturday, we're doing a workshop, a virtual workshop from noon till 5, and I'm going to show demos of the various meters. I'm going to show some demos of some of the burst training. I'm going to do some demos of some of the food, and I'm bringing on some experts to talk about some of these specialized areas. So from 12 to 5 on Saturday, and Lynn could probably, I don't know if it's finished yet. Don't put the link in yet because we still have to check it. But as soon as you finish this, we'll send you an email like later this afternoon or evening that will give you the option to sign up and come to that, because it's going to be like, I get so frustrated by these short periods and I so want to go into more detail. So I decided to do it, and I'm not going to charge. I was going to charge 25 or 50 bucks, just a nominal fee just to come. And I said, you know what? I just want to give. I just want it to be my give back. I enjoy it, doing it. It's going to be in my living room. I'm going to be showing you stuff, and there'll be some slides probably, but not a whole lot. Mostly it's going to be interactive workshop. I can't wait. It's going to be great. Patricia, recovering from a fracture, getting back into exercising after being given the all clear. Great. I know when I had broken my arm and I wasn't able to exercise, I said, why can't I run? He goes, oh, so the jostling is going to hurt it. I'm like, So I was like doing weightlifting with one arm. It's frustrating, isn't it? Put on extra weight. I feel awful, but trying to do well in the kitchen. Tired in the AM, tired in the afternoon. Brain fog doesn't seem to matter. Yeah, and so it's these other factors going on in there as well. Specific nutrients too. We didn't get a chance to talk about specific nutrients, things like chromium and magnesium and DHA, and we go into that in the program. When you join, you get access immediately to the first module we call Foundations, and in that module, you're going to be taken step by step through what you need to do to get started. And here's a few comments. Wow, there's a lot of comments. I'll see what I can read, and then I want to honor our time. We're already over time. 76-year-old grandmother, yay, wants to stay vibrant so I can pass on all I've learned. Just discovered you yesterday on Sean Stewart's. Yay, join us, Maria. That would be awesome. Awesome. Becky, yes, since I passed my 40th birthday, the weight just stays there no matter what. Didn't used to have the problem. Yeah, and we can change it. We can shift it. We can optimize the diet to you. Karen, I'm not overweight, just not feeling myself on a fast. Yay, fasting is great. Day 4. It's a great way to do it. Monica said she gained 20 pounds in the past 15 months. Blood sugar's climbing as well as brain fog. This is perfect for you. Glyphosate and pesticides are responsible for much of our illness. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much. We didn't have time to go into all of it, but the environment is huge. Some of the people that you may know about that are coming to speak on the workshop that we're doing on Saturday, Ocean Robbins, and he can touch on the glyphosate and pesticides. That's his area of expertise. We've got JJ Virgin. We've got John McMahon from the I Thrive Diabetes series. We've got who else is going to be? Dr. Anna Kabecka, and she's going to talk about the connection between blood sugar and menopause. We've got Claudia, our own Claudia. I can not even going to say her last name, Claudia M, and she is going to talk about the vision and the effect of blood sugar on vision. And then we have, who else did I miss? Dr. Alan Hopkins, who's going to talk, some more specifics on the lab. He's an ER doc and a functional medicine doc. So we've got some great people. We've also got some of our coaches who are going to come on and share some of their experiences of what works with their clients. Diana, first time with you except for a 15-minute intro, which was fantastic. I heard all about you when I was Bright Line Eating. Oh, yay. Welcome. A lot of folks come from Bright Line Eating, and you hit a plateau with certain things. Like there's different programs that work for different people, and I know people who high carbohydrate, whole foods carbohydrate, low fat diet works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for everybody. Certainly doesn't work for me. Olga working on autoimmune issues, great. Naomi. Listening for the first time. Love listening to webinars and learn so much. Thank you. Dawn, brain foggy and falling asleep after a meal. That is a surefire sign of insulin resistance or pre-insulin resistance. I want to know everything I can on how to overcome insulin resistance for myself and my children. Jackie, yay, I'm glad you're here. I hope you join us for the program because it'll help so many in your family. Donna says, I'm definitely going to try to make my own nut milks, and that way you can vary them, and you can put hemp seeds in the omega-6 rich ones. We teach you all of this. I can go on and on for hours. Rose said, I made taco meat today. I think it would be great with cabbage sandwich for the lettuce, tomato, red onion. Lovely. Yes. Patty, sugar affects cholesterol too. Last cardiologist I talked to said no more than 22 milligrams per day. 22 milligrams per day, not teaspoons. When I changed my diet, the doctor said my results were better than if I'd gone on medication. Yay, Penny. You're a testament to what's possible. Yep. More people struggling with weight. Herbert, diagnosed diabetic. Yeah, absolutely. This can be huge. Vincent said, I'm a member of the Mastering Diabetes program. I noticed that what you've been saying, not all foods, just because they're whole, may be good for you if you're diabetic. Exactly. I like what you say and need more detail on your program. I like your individual attention, and this is what I need. Yes, Vincent, you can go look at the sheet that sweetspotsolution.com/now. If you want to go deeper before you sign up, just go leave off the now and just go to the sweetspotsolution.com, and you'll see a video with me and then more detail about the program. Mary is in. Yay. Thank you for all this information and your generous nature. Yay. Both said, what optimal glucose levels fasting through the day? Yeah, I find that 85 and below, like 75 to 85, even 65 to 85, just depends. Sometimes my fasting is usually in the 70s, unless I'm doing some like a fast, and then it's down in the 30s and 40s, but we won't go there right now. I'll talk to you about that when you're in the program. If I go back to, it's missing. I'm just going to go in and sorry. I just wanted to welcome some folks because I know that there were a bunch of you that signed up, and I like to read your names and say hi. But if you've signed up and I didn't acknowledge you, go ahead and put your name in there. Let's see. Here we go. Looks like. And if you feel like you really need some personalized attention and coaching on top of this, and you want somebody to work with you one-on-one, we do have that available as well. And you'll find out more when you sign up. All right, let's see. We have a whole bunch of new people. Let me see. Yeah, so any more while I'm waiting for that to open. All right. Yeah, payment plan for sure. Yeah. Oh, so fasting and throughout the day. I like to see it. Really, I like to see it no higher than 85 fasting and no higher than 110 throughout the day. And that's based on a lot of research, a lot of stuff that shows what the behind the scenes is going on. Right. And the answer to the question about why, some people go on like, the McDougall and all that, those are great diets. They really are, as long as you stick with whole foods when you do them. But what happens is that for some people, they don't do well with those diets. And then there's an issue going on. It looks like we went over our whatever 19 that we said. So everybody that signed up on the call today, plus anybody that signed up earlier, you're going to get all the extra bonuses. So no worries on that. So we have Catherine and Susan and Mary. Welcome. Welcome, Vicky and Barbara and Maria, Marilla, Beth and Linda and Amy and Cheryl and Kathleen and Rob. Oh my gosh, we have so many folks. I'm so excited to see you. Oh, I'm still going to keep going. Michael and Judith, yay. And Mary and Michael, another Michael. Sharon, yay. Mary Agnes, yay. Cheryl. Another Cheryl. You got a lot of duplicate names. Johanna. Looks like you did it twice. Oh no, Johanna, you took the extra coaching call. Yay! You won't be disappointed with that. And Olivia and Cynthia. So yay to all of you. And Eva, looks like you signed it just like last night. So thank you for your trust. And I'm very much looking forward to Saturday. So hopefully you guys will be able to make it. If not, we will make replays available over the course of the next days, but there's nothing like being there in person, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions. So it's going to be more interactive than something like this. It'll be on the same platform, but we'll have the ability to pull you in if you really want to ask questions or participate. So I'm super excited about it. Let me get rid of my screen share. And thank you guys for your attention. We've gone over 2 hours, and I apologize for that. Maybe I should just tell people these are going to be 2 hours, because no matter how hard I try, I can't make it under 2 hours. So much to share. And maybe after we have this thing on Saturday, I'll have shared so much of it that I'll be able to do this shorter. So thank you, everyone, so very much for being here, for your interest. And, I wish, like I said, that there was something like this available for when my parents were going through this. And before they died, if they had had something available that they could have done, I think we might have had much different outcome. Yeah. So if you have questions, click on the link. You'll go to the page, and you can chat with our team members, because they know a lot about the program. If you are on the fence and you want to have that conversation, we'll extend the end of the call bonuses. We'll extend those within a half hour, 45 minutes. So I don't want you to feel pressured to make a decision, because if it's not the right decision, I don't want you to do that just because. But I also want you to not just think that you can wait forever, because when you do that, then you just don't get the results that you deserve. And I want to see you getting these results. So thank you, everyone, so much, and many blessings. Have a great rest of the week. And hopefully I'll see a bunch of you on Saturday at the workshop. And again, it's noon to 5. And that's Saturday. That's noon to 5 Central Time, which would be 10 until 3 Pacific Time. And look forward to it. We're going to have some prizes. I haven't decided exactly what they are, but we're going to offer prizes and contests, and just kind of make it fun. All right. Bye, everyone. Talk to you soon. Much love. Bye.